wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa mawalah amma ba'd. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon to all. Welcome to the virtual webinar, Development of Islamic Bank in Brunei. This program is organized by Academy of Contemporary Islamic Studies, UiTM Cawangan Terengganu. And this session will be moderated by me, Muhammad Ariff bin Muhammad Daud. I'm live today from studio UiTM City. As usual, don't forget to like and subscribe the channel for more interesting and insightful discussion. That's the sponsor's advert. Okay, so why Brunei become our focus today? Okay, besides Brunei is our good neighbors, Brunei is also actively, like Malaysia, promoting and growing their Islamic finance industry. Brunei have relatively mature Islamic banking and finance industry, more than 2 years, similar like us, and rank among top 10 performing Islamic finance market. In connection with the Brunei Islamic monarchy philosophy, Islamic banking and finance has become one of the primary sectors of focus in the financial service industry. At present, the Islamic financial service sector covers banking, takaful, asset management, mutual funds, and trust service. In the history, we talk about history, Islamic banking was first introduced in Brunei Darussalam in the early 90s and has since seen tremendous growth. A key contributor to the Brunei's financial service performance is Islamic finance industry, which has seen strong growth over the past decade. 2019 saw Brunei's Islamic banking industry grow 12.1% year-on-year compared to 11.6% year-on-year in 2018. The growth is almost twice the growth recorded in 2010. So this robust growth has resulted in Brunei holding the highest share of Islamic banking assets in the world at 40%. And now the government of Brunei has identified fintech or financial technology as a facilitator to further develop and grow the country's Islamic banking sector. Well, that's a brief introduction on Islamic finance industry in Brunei, but I won't go into detail because that's the function of our panelists today. But before we go further, I would like to invite Academy of Contemporary Islamic Studies, ACIS UiTM City Head of Study Center, Dr. Wan Nur Hazina Wan Jusoh, to give a welcoming remarks. Dr. Wana, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, thank you to Dr. Ariff as our moderator today. Good afternoon to all my fellow friends, UiTM Cawangan Terengganu, lecturers, and also lecturers from other campuses. Last but not least, my dear students. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ACIS International Webinar entitled Development of Islamic Bank in Brunei. It is my pleasure to welcome everyone to this meaningful event today. I also like to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of Program Committee, Dr. Hamizah and Dr. Muhammad Ariff, for organizing the first International ACIS webinar for this year. Thank you for inviting me to give an opening speech for this webinar. It is an honor to have Dr. Amnisuhailah binti Abarahan today as our guest speaker for this webinar session. Actually, Dr. Amni, who is a lecturer at Sultan Sharif Ali Islamic University Brunei, Darussalam or UiSA, is also a member of my research grant together with Dr. Ariff in Research Collaboration Fund. Thank you so much, Dr. Amni, for accepting our invitation to share your precious knowledge, experience, and expertise in Islamic banking and finance. That is why we invite Dr. Amni to give her talk about the development of Islamic Bank in Brunei. I quoted from Borneo Bulletin, which was published on 30th of January 2020, reported that Brunei Darussalam maintained its ranking as one of the top 10 performing Islamic finance markets out of 131 countries, as reported in the ICD Definitive Islamic Finance Development Report 2019. The report, which takes into account data in 2018, revealed that Brunei Darussalam scored 45 points in the Islamic Finance Development Indicator, ranking Brunei Darussalam at the 10th position in 2019 and 3rd in Asian region after Malaysia and Indonesia. Evidently, it shows that Islamic finance in Brunei is progressing right now. And it's not impossible that with a strong support from the government, conducive ecosystem, effective regulatory framework, and strong human capital development, Brunei may replace Malaysia, Indonesia as an Islamic finance hub in this region one day. Who knows, right? Okay, well, I believe everyone can't wait to hear the sharing session that will be given by our guest, Dr. Amni. So without any further ado, let us listen to Dr. Amni's talk to enlighten us on this matter. I pass back the mic to Dr. Ariff to proceed with the program. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Thank you, Dr. Wan Nur Hazlina. To discuss further, we have with us today our special guest that we bring from Brunei, of course virtually, Dr. Amnisuhailah Abarahan. Dr. Amni is currently a lecturer at Sultan Sharif Ali Islamic University, or we call UNISA in Brunei Darussalam. She is also an adjunct lecturer at University of Brunei Darussalam, UBD. Dr. Amni is not foreign to Malaysia. She graduated from IIUM, Islamic International Universities Malaysia, in Fiqh and Usul Fiqh for her degree, and then she continued her masters in Islamic Jurisprudence at the same university, and then she obtained her PhD in Islamic Finance from INSAF, also in Malaysia. Suffice to say, she is well versed not only with Islamic banking and finance industry in Brunei, but also in Malaysia. So let us welcome Dr. Amni today. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Amni.
Waalaikumsalam, Dr. Ariff, Dr. Wan Nur Hazlina.
Okay, as usual, the chat section is open. If any of the audience have any question that you would like to ask Dr. Amni, don't worry, I'll go through the comment section. So at first we are thinking of conducting this session in Malay, but then Dr. Amni is worried that she might speak Brunei accent, although she has been staying in Malaysia for a number of years. Hence, we proceed in English with some mix of Malay. Don't worry, so the question can be also in Malay. Before we go further, I think it would be interesting if Dr. Amni can share with us on the history of development of Islamic banking and finance in Brunei. Thank you, Dr. Amni.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ariff. Thank you very much, Dr. Wan Nur Hazlina. Before I start, I would like to thank UiTM Terengganu as well as the faculty of Dr. Wan Nur Hazlina and also Dr. Ariff for inviting me today for this collaborative effort on discussing the development of Islamic Bank in Brunei. When we talk about the history of Islamic banking and also finance in Brunei Darussalam, I think we would go back before independence. But let me just highlight some of the very important milestones that mark the significance of Islamic banking industry in Brunei Darussalam. The moderator, Dr. Ariff, has summarized quite successively on the emergence of Islamic banking and finance in Brunei Darussalam in the early 1990s, which is definitely correct. If I may quote the titah of His Majesty, who is a very strong proponent of Islamic banking and finance in the country, was when he was really happy on the establishment of the first Islamic Trust Fund, or the which we call TAIB, Tabung Amanah Islam Brunei. It closely resembles the Tabung Haji in Malaysia. So it was in 1991. So that was the first initial, not so-called Islamic bank, but it was more of an Islamic trust fund. So every investment activities, every saving activities was based on Sharia compliancy of doing everything the right way, the halal way, as what is being dictated in Sharia. Then in 1993, further development of Islamic bank and finance in Brunei was with the significance of another Islamic bank, which is the International Bank of Brunei, later converted to Islamic Bank of Brunei. So that was the first, which we called the initial landmark of the first Islamic bank in Brunei Darussalam. During that particular year itself, His Majesty has also proclaimed the same titah, saying on how happy he was with the first establishment of the Islamic Bank. If I may recall back in 1991 when the Tabung Amanah Islam Brunei was being established, he was actually saying, you know, in order to have public confidence, in order to say, you know, we're going to do it the right way, going to do it the Sharia compliant way of investing, of savings, I would be the investor. Okay, His Majesty said that he would be the major investor in Tabung Amanah Islam Brunei, and he had actually guaranteed that if anything happens to this tabung or to this particular investment Islamic trust fund, the government would therefore proceed in guaranteeing any form of default risk. So it was to that extent that he was a very strong proponent of Islamic banking and also finance to be established in Brunei Darussalam. So years after that, we also see further developments. After 1993, there was also the conversion of the Development Bank of Brunei to the development of Islamic Bank of Brunei, and further collaborative effort between the two banks initially, which is Islamic Bank of Brunei and also the development of Islamic Bank of Brunei, merging together in 2005. So that was another collaborative effort, which is a very significant milestone, to which BIBD has come into fruition. So BIBD, as maybe the majority of Malaysians or those in Terengganu do not know, that these are the major retail banking that we have, or bank that we have in Brunei Darussalam. So we only have one Islamic bank, and BIBD or Brunei BIBD, which is Brunei Bank Islam Brunei Darussalam, is the only Islamic bank serving the whole nation in the country. So this is the main, how would you say, the main market player in terms of Islamic banking finance. So with the establishment of BIBD, we later have, we also have IBB Securities, which later turned into BIBD Securities. We also have other financing subsidiaries of BIBD, such as BIBD Tamwil. We also have the BIBD subsidiary, which is BIBD Securities, which I have mentioned earlier on. Just to let you know, we also have a dual conventions, dual banking system like that of Malaysia. However, of course, the market players in terms of the banks, conventional banks and also Islamic banks in Brunei is quite small compared to that in Malaysia. We only have around 8 major banks, 7 of the conventional, and 1 Islamic bank, which is BIBD. So which is 3 international banks, 3 regional banks, and also 2 local banks. Okay, so with regards to that, you can actually see the landscape of Islamic banking, also finance in Brunei, is actually shaped in a way to which the infrastructure is very much supported and also recognized through our way of living, or how it is being propagated as being supported by His Majesty himself. The country is based on the philosophy of Melayu Islam Beraja. And this has a very strong significance, not just in other major daily life activities, but also in Islamic banking industry in the country. Another significant, how would you say, objective or basis and also landscape that shaped the Islamic banking industry from, I think, 2011 towards the future of 2035 is the Wawasan 2035. So we have this objective that by 2035, we would be a nation among the best, with a very high standard of living, among the top 10 in the world, and then having a very stable and also sustainable economy by 2035, among the top 10 as well in the world. And also the most important thing is to have highly skilled and also trained individuals of the citizens of Brunei Darussalam recognized among the standards in the world itself. So basically, when you see the objective of economy and also finance, one of the major strategies is for the country to be able to be recognized. And this is definitely the role of course, the central bank. So we have the central bank just like that in Malaysia, but to which it is known as AMBD, the Authority Monetary Board of Brunei Darussalam. So most of the time, of course, there are regulators to overseeing and also to impose certain measures, ensuring that the financial ecosystem is very much regulated, and also to impose regulatory measures where necessary. So when we talk about AMBD, one of the most significant, drive that they had was through the financial sector blueprint. So through this financial sector blueprint of 2035, which is in conjunction of the Wawasan 2025 that we had, was to, in regards to Islamic banking and also finance industry, is to ensure and also to make Islamic banking and also finance in the country towards progressively improving to become an Islamic financial hub. So the Islamic financial blueprint is very, very much important when we talk about Islamic banking and also finance. So basically, to the drive to become an Islamic financial hub is very much stated in the Islamic financial blueprint, the financial sector blueprint of 2016 to 2035. Among others that I can quote is, of course, firstly, when AMBD itself has become members of, for example, the International Islamic Capital Market, okay, members of that, and also IFSB. So among others, this would ensure that the Islamic banking and so finance industry in the country, Brunei Darussalam, would be at par at international level. Among other things as well, there are collaborating. AMBD as the regulator is collaborating with other ministries, for example, the educational ministries in terms of financial literacy. They are working at the grassroots. The schemes to ensure that financial literacy are being imposed, not just at the upper level, at the IPT level, but also from the lower up. Okay, so those are the kind of things that we definitely see being part of the success in Islamic banking also industry that we have now. So if I could sum up, Dr. Ariff, in terms of what we see in terms of the development of Islamic banking and finance in Brunei Darussalam is, number one, is of course the political will that the Majesty has in terms of always supporting and also pushing Islamic banking and finance industry. Secondly, is of course the regulators, okay, to ensuring the framework and also infrastructure is there, and also the sustainability of the Islamic ecosystem, and also to compete at par with the conventional system. Thirdly, is of course in terms of regulations. Of course, there's a lot of regulations that have enabled Islamic bank and finance industry to be operating in the Islamic finance ecosystem. So I think that sums up a bit of the history of Islamic bank and finance. I hope I don't go too far, Dr. Ariff, so that you can actually ask me questions at the very end. Okay, so I pass the mic back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amni, for the, I would say, a brief history. Okay, and Dr. Amni always mentioned about the role of His Majesty Sultan of Brunei. I mean, his political will on setting up this industry to have a true Islamic banking and finance industry in Brunei. In this context, I have personally met a number of Bruneians, Dr. Amni included, of course, sponsored by the country to further their studies. In particular, we have Dr. Amni in Malaysia, and if I'm not mistaken, in a few other countries as well. And now the country itself, I mean Brunei itself, through their universities, trying to grow their local talent in this aspect. If I'm not mistaken, there are courses of Islamic finance and banking in UBD, University Brunei Darussalam, and also UNISA, your universities. What do you think about the talent and skills of Islamic finance experts in Brunei? Is it sufficient local talent, or are they, Brunei in this context, are still open to expatriates, for example? Maybe opportunity for us. I don't know. Your comment?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Ariff, for the question. Yes, it's true that the government itself, through His Majesty, has been very quite generous in terms of giving us scholarships and also opportunities to learn, not just in the country but also abroad, in order to further our understanding and also expertise in Islamic banking and finance, not just in terms of IPT education, but also in terms of training itself. Yes, I think in terms of local talent, I think it's still at a nascent stage. Islamic finance and also banking, in terms of education, I think it's still something new. We do have a lot of graduates. If I say a lot, it's not like a lot, but we do have some of the graduates from UNISA and also UBD, embarking on a stage of going into the workforce. But however, I think I haven't seen any of the graduates further embarking in the industry. So they may be somewhere in the industry, but I haven't seen them, visibly participating in the industry. In terms of expatriates, yes, I do think that the industry is very much open. They are not restricted in terms of just local talents, but also open to international talents. As long as you have the talent, why not? But in terms of locals, I think we are still very much limited. We haven't have so much of the expertise, just like that, what you have in Malaysia, of course, to the likes of Dr. Wan Hazlina, yourself, Dr. Ariff, Dr. Prof. Engku Rabia Adawiyah. So we would love to see, in the future, talents who are really well versed in Islamic banking and finance, so that they can actually push the boundaries of Islamic banking and finance into practice. Okay, so we do see a lot of lecturers, for example, in terms of education, yes, but we do need to bridge the gap of not just having academicians, but also those who can actually practice the theory part into reality. So I think we're still lacking in terms of that, but inshallah, there's a lot of initiatives being made by the government, by universities as well. Just to let you know that universities are definitely universities are not just saying UNISA, but also UBD and also UTB, I think, are offering scholarships for international students. If anyone listening is interested, to our universities, which is fully paid for, of course, always, by, I think, some ministry. I think it's going to be Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So if you have the talent, if you are interested to actually have your education, continuance in Brunei Darussalam, do find out more, so that we can, have exchange of students, or exchange of education and also learning, which is going to be very, very valuable, not just for yourself and myself, but for the industry of the Islamic banking and Islamic sector in the Asian region. I pass back the mic to you, Dr. Ariff.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amni. Now we goes about the Islamic banking and finance industry in the Brunei itself. For example, with now COVID-19 pandemic happening, plus uncertainty in all prices, I think that's a very big factor in affecting Islamic banks and finance in Brunei. Not only Islamic banks lah, banks in general. So how would that affect Islamic bank in Brunei? Because I think, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that Dr. Amni is also one of the Sharia board members of Bank Islam Brunei Darussalam. So she should be quite well versed on the banking industries in Brunei. So what do you think on the current situation happening there?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ariff, for mentioning on the Sharia board member. So with COVID-19, of course, I'm pretty sure it's not just Brunei being affected in a sense, but also in countries like Malaysia and also other countries as well around the world. Yes, of course, just like any other bank, I think the most significant part which is being affected in banks is definitely in terms of, the credit default risk, not just for corporations, but also for retail customers. So I think if we can go back to a conversation, I think that was an online discussion between myself and also some of the market players of BIBD, and then we have Takaful and also the Islamic Trust Fund that we have in Brunei, on how COVID-19 has actually affected them. One of the points, if I may quote, on BIBD, was the fact that they had to actually shift, in terms of not just focusing on the credit side, but they have to shift somewhere else into technical or, financial things which are more digitalization, the payments of digitalization. So basically, I'm pretty sure that you know that during COVID-19, there's going to be a lot of shopping was done online, ordering was done online, even food and beverages, even the simple things like sanitizers or face masks was being done online. So I think the strength of Islamic Bank in Brunei during COVID-19 was definitely the digitalization of the payments. So the payment system was very much rampant during COVID-19. So basically, I think BIBD has successfully covered that major that major opportunity, because it was untapped before this. Maybe you don't know that a lot of Bruneians prefer to pay in cash. We don't usually prefer to use debit cards or Mastercards or even the credit card system. But however, I think COVID-19 has actually push that boundary. People have started to use digital type of payments. They have started using the PayWave system. So all those things has actually been tested, and it was successful, fortunately, during COVID-19. And it has not just struck a chord, but also has, twist in a way, but in a good way, of how the Islamic banking system and also Islamic financial system in Brunei worked. So I think in terms of digitalization, that has actually changed the way Islamic Bank, particularly BIBD, in further, how would you say, confronting COVID-19. I pass back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Thank you, Dr. Amni. If any of the audience have any question or any burning questions, you can just post it in the chat section. I would go through and take the questions later. Dr. Amni, as a woman, right? Woman like you got good self. How well are you received in this industry? Is there any gender discrimination that you see or perceive happening in the industry? Maybe in Brunei, in Malaysia, I don't know your experience before. And is it a challenge being a woman in this industry from your point of view?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ariff, for the burning question. So I don't think there's going to there is discrimination, or there is going to be discrimination, because when we talk about Islamic banking and finance, it's pretty much something which is not objective per se, but it's something it's something very tangible. Okay, by tangible I mean it's you don't put a gender on it. So I think I'm basically very, very fortunate as well, because I have a very supportive team, not just in BIBD. Especially I have our previous how would you say, a previous colleague, Dr. Ariff, Dr. Lutfi, also a member of the board with me. So he is also very, very much supportive. I have other colleagues as well who are very supportive. So I think a very strong support system when we talk about gender differences is that you need to have a very strong support system with the opposite gender. So I think I received this very, very well among my colleagues, and practically even in my university I received quite a very supportive team as well, because coming from a very humble background, a very young age, at a very young PhD, to be able to be involved in the industry is such a blessing for me. So having this opportunity, I think a very well supported system that I have very much helped. And I don't think that we have it in Malaysia. I do not know, because I was not really involved in the industry, but I do have some opportunities. My previous lecturer and also supervisor was very kind enough to actually bring me into the Islamic banking sector in Malaysia, to actually have the experience and also to be involved in a certain way, and that was very, very much helpful in particularly having myself the experience to actually apply it in the context of Brunei Darussalam. So in terms of women, I think we have a lot of women actually in the Islamic banking sector. Maybe I may share with you the managing director. The deputy managing director of BIBD is a woman. The director of, I think, managing director of TAIB, which is the Tabung Amanat Islam Brunei, is also a woman. So definitely that is a very important milestone when we talk about women in the Islamic banking industry. So by that, it is definitely prove itself that definitely discrimination of gender would not be of a problem. So yeah, I don't think there is a problem for me. And I would not, I would think there would not be a problem for anyone, any woman in the Islamic banking sector in Brunei Darussalam, now or in the future, inshallah, as long as, you know, you have a very strong support system with your colleagues and also, you know, working together with everyone on board the Islamic banking industry. Thank you, Dr. Ariff.
Okay, Dr. Amni, I will take a questions from the YouTube chat. Okay, so one of the
Okay.
question, I think this is from the good friend of yours, Farini Morni from UiTM Sarawak. Okay,
Ah,
so
hi, Farini.
so with the fast development of Islamic banking in Brunei, would you say that the Brunei is successful in their implementation of Islamic banking? If not, what the areas that you can improve? I mean, Brunei can improve.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Ariff. Thank you, Farini, always with a burning question. um, if you say successful, I think I may say yes. For now, definitely, AMBD as the regulator has done quite a good job in ascertaining some of the major improvements and also some, bits of things to actually cater for the Islamic banking sector to work. Making sure regulations are imposed, making sure the infrastructure enables Islamic banking to be implemented. But however, in another sense, I think there are major areas that I think should be propagated more. Okay, and also being pushed, definitely. For example, is the one which is mentioned by Dr. Ariff, which is fintech, financial technology. So I think we are seeking, a lot of us in Brunei Darussalam, the market players, academicians especially, and also those particularly involved in Islamic fintech would definitely love to see, you know, in the near future, the regulations of fintech being proposed by the regulators, hopefully soon, because this is definitely something that we can tap upon in Brunei Darussalam successfully. Another major area that I would like to see is definitely the social finance sector, because I see a great deal in the zakat and also the wakaf funds that we have in Brunei Darussalam. And if this is, you know, if we have a collaboration with the right ministry, of course, the religious ministry, if we are given the opportunity, the Islamic banking industry is given the opportunity to be able to collaborate, I see a lot of good things ahead in terms of the Islamic social finance in the country. So we would love to actually replicate the initiatives done in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in terms of Islamic social finance. So I do see that we do have this gray area that is untapped for. So we are also hoping that the ministry, the relevant ministry, also open for collaboration for Islamic social finance initiatives for the betterment of Islamic banking industry and also for the community at large. So I think that answers your question, Farini. I give it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
If you don't mind, would you elaborate further on the
Mm-hmm.
Islamic social finance initiative that you mentioned? I mean, what is the
Mm-hmm.
area that you think can be done? And I mean, just in
Mm-hmm.
general. And you said we have a
Just in
successful
general.
Islamic social finance implementation in Malaysia. And what do you think that you
Mm-hmm.
see from your point of view? What is the success that you see?
Well, one of the things is that I think I wanted to see Wakaf progressing more, because there are going to be some issues in terms of the scholarly opinions on matters like cash Wakaf. And then I would also like to see in terms of zakat implementation, I myself see zakat, being very much moderated in a very successful platform in Malaysia. So I would also like to see that being implemented in Brunei. If I may share with you, Dr. Ariff, Farini, and also the audience, just recently, I think was it a few days ago, successfully. It was a very good, I think, good news. Although it's kind of maybe something that Malaysia has done quite, quite quite in advance, but it's quite a very good news for myself and also for my colleagues and also the Islamic banking sector at large, because now for the zakat fitrah, for the upcoming Ramadan, the Ministry of Religious Affairs is now open to the idea of accepting zakat payments through digital platforms. Although it's being restricted through debit payments, but still, this is a major progress. And Alhamdulillah, I think the ministry is also open furthermore to other initiatives. So these are some of the things that I think, should we push forward financial technology together with social finance, a collaboration with relevant ministries for the betterment of each of the social finance initiatives to be successful. I give it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Okay, Dr. Amni, we have a question here. I think it's quite related to what we or you did before in your PhD. I mean, we both do about the same thing, talking about housing and stuff. But Dr. Amni is more on the law. So there's a question here about how Islamic mortgages is structured in Brunei. Is it similar with how we practice in Malaysia? The
Islamic mortgages
contract and stuff. Yeah.
Okay. To answer that, Islamic mortgages, we do have for now. Before this, the Islamic Bank in Brunei, BIBD, was using Musyawarah Mutanakisah. Basically, it was Musyawarah Mutanakisah. And then further, I think I'm not so sure whether now it's only home improvement which is doing tawarruk. In terms of it being structured, correct, Tarif? How is it structured?
The question is like this, because what's happening is that when you buy a house, let's say for 300,000, so we're talking about 25, 30 years, and technically what you're paying is 600,000, something like that, because you impute the profit rate and stuff, right? So is it the same in Brunei, or do you have a subsidy for first-time home buyers without interest or without profit rate being implemented? I don't know what's the practice in Brunei.
Unfortunately, Dr. Ariff, when we talk about banks per se, we cannot run from the idea of profit rates or interest rates when it comes to conventional. If it's subsidies, perhaps the person asking would be asking about the housing, the government housings. Yes, we do have subsidies for the government housings, but unfortunately not for the private housings. Of course, private housings would still need to be applied with the same, home mortgages that we have, whether it's Islamic financing or the conventional loans. So we do have the profit rates still intact. We do have the interest rates still intact for the conventional loans. However, for subsidies, it's only for the government housings. Okay, so we have the RPN Rumah, which is the Perumahan Negara. For that, yes, we do have housings which are with subsidies, entitled for every citizen of Brunei Darussalam, from the government of His Majesty and His Majesty himself. So yes, for that, yes. But in terms of the housings that you want to buy, for private settlements, unfortunately, it's still going to be the same. There are no subsidies. I pass it back to you, Dr. Ariff. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question from Bubble Tea. Oh, that's make me.
Oh, Bubble Tea.
Okay. So, how about the implementation of Islamic ethics in business transaction in Brunei? I mean, is it fully implemented in a Brunei business or Islamic banks in Brunei? If not, what's prevent it? Because you said earlier, I mean, the political willingness of the His Majesty Sultan is so great, right? So, or is it the ideal or the definition of Islamic business ethics itself has not been clearly defined for the implementation? What's your view?
Okay. When you talk about Islamic ethics, I think that's a very wide coverage. But per se, I do agree, Dr. Ariff, when you say that business ethics, Islamic business ethics, is not correctly defined, because I do believe like this. When you do it, every single thing according to how it is being dictated and also within the paradigms of the Sharia, by right, that is just is ethically doing business the right way itself. So when we talk about Islamic ethics, I think as long as it's halal, it's not haram, there's no interest. You are doing it according to the paradigms and also in accordance to the paradigms of the Sharia. You are not transgressing any forms of rights from other parties. You are doing what is necessary. You have everything in contract in detail. Everything is being jotted down in the contracts and also the legal documentations. And then whatever is being disposed of through that contract, and then whatever is being implemented would be recompense, whatever is default in anything, then by right, then you are basically doing everything the right way. So I think that would definitely define doing business ethically. So when we talk about Brunei, I think the most important part that we have is the governance. So we have, just like Malaysia, we have a two-tier Sharia supervisory system. We have the SFSP at the upper part, to which AMBD is also the secretariat, and then on the ground side we have the Sharia Advisory Board for each particular bank. So in this respect, Islamic Bank is BIBD. So in this sense, the roles of this Sharia advisors and also the body, to ensure that every single thing being done, business activities, everything is being done in accordance to that of the Islamic way of doing business, is definitely something which is quite active. So when on the ground in Islamic Bank, the Sharia Advisory Board would definitely ensure that everything is done, the correct way. Of course, we have the lines of defense of the Sharia department. We have the Sharia review, we have the Sharia research, the Sharia risk committee, and also the Sharia audit, just like that in Malaysia as well. Okay, the Sharia governance framework. So when these are ensured, definitely, because it's being scrutinized from every single areas. So it's not like, okay, it's halal because there's no interest. No, it's not. Just chopping them with the name that this is permissible, but you scrutinize from the fact that you offer it until it is being offered on the shelves, and also after it is being operated, in the community. So I think that if this is being done the right way, the Sharia Advisory Board of the bank ensures that it is being done as is being directed by the SFSB, or being advised by SFSB in what is being Sharia compliant in terms of not just retail products and also services, but also in other forms of maybe ethics as well. And when they comply with that, and everything is being done the right way, I think, yes, it is going to be done ethically and also the Islamic way of doing business. So I think that rests my case. I think I'll pass it back to you, Dr. Ariff. I hope that answers the question of the person. Okay.
Okay. So if you see in the context of Malaysia, yes, we have a SGF before, or Sharia Governance Framework, that you have mentioned. But recently, through the strategy paper introduced by Bank Negara Malaysia, they introduced value-based intimidation, or VBI. If I may quote here, VBI aims to deliver the intended outcomes of Sharia through practices, conduct, and offerings that generate positive and sustainable impact to the economy, community, and environment, consistent with the shareholders' sustainable returns and long-term interests. So, do you see any similar progression taking places in Brunei, for example? I mean, do you want to adopt this VBI strategy? Of course, it's just a strategy paper in this context, but then I think this is what the people want from the industry, right? I mean, the banks not only think about the profit, but also think about the community, the environment. What's your view on VBI yourself?
True, true. I think the VBI was already in the picture when I was still in Malaysia at a particular time trying to finish my PhD, Dr. Ariff. And I definitely value the value-based intermediation is definitely something which is very valuable in a sense. And I do agree with the fact that, you know, being an Islamic bank, you don't just do it because you are an Islamic bank, but you do it for the sake of, you know, for the community, because you are an Islamic bank. So it's not just about profit, definitely true, but for the goodness of everyone in the community, and so for the progress of not just the Islamic banking industry, but for religion and also our belief in the same time. So I think yes, value-based intermediation is very important. Definitely, if this strategy paper is proposed or implemented as well by AMBD or other statutory, you know, paper, I would definitely love for it to be set up just like that, being implemented being strategized in Malaysia. If I may share also, I think this value-based intermediation, although it's not yet in our papers, because the SGF was just currently, I think it was in 2018, and I noticed that for your SGF, there's a recent one, Dr. Ariff, in 2020. So I haven't read through that. So for the, if I may share, in terms of the value-based intermediation, let me give you an example of BIBD again as an Islamic bank, not being biased, okay, Dr. Ariff. If I may share, during COVID-19, being an Islamic bank, it was quite how would you say, a challenge for BIBD, because a lot of businesses were having difficulties in paying, you know, their loans and also their financings. So one of the things that BIBD has stepped up and also made quite a very impressive step for me, you know, as a citizen of Brunei, was when they actually opened a platform, an online platform, giving opportunities to local businesses during COVID-19 to actually sell. You know, so every form of payments is going through the IBD, so they are giving this platform. They call it, I think, Community Brunei or Brunei Community, okay, some sort. So everyone who are having difficulties, definitely, they were targeting, I think, single mothers, and then those who are, you know, not having a very comfortable life, definitely, when especially during the setup of COVID-19. So what they did was that they opened up that particular platform, giving opportunity to businesses, not just new businesses, but also businesses who closed shops during COVID-19. So that for me was, you know, a bank not just being a bank, but a bank, an Islamic bank, being very Islamic, you know, giving the opportunity, you know, having the heart, and not just the energy, but also the heart, and also the how would you say, the openness to help the community without any form of payment. You know, you don't need any form of counter value, or you don't need anything, you know, in response to what they're doing. So for me, that was a very huge nudge in terms of an Islamic bank being very, very Islamic. So I think that was a very huge stepping stone in the country. So again, if I may highlight, COVID-19 has definitely pushed the boundaries of Islamic banking and finance, and I'm sure in Malaysia it has pushed even more, you know, giving us the opportunity to prove that Islamic banking and also finance industry can actually be so resilient because of the characters and features that we have. So I think this is definitely the time for us to unleash what we have in store for the betterment of the community. So I pass it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Thank you, Dr. Amni. Don't worry, questions are still welcome. Please do post any question on the chat section. I will still go through that. Okay, so Dr. Amni, what do you think the future will hold for Islamic banking and finance industry in Brunei? Maybe your general future outlook. I mean, you don't have a magic ball, but maybe just your view.
A future outlook. Well, definitely, we would love to see Islamic banking finance. Although you say that we are a major, we are at a very good position. When you quoted the statistics and also the rates earlier on, but we would love to see the industry progressing even more. Of course, to be at par with Malaysia is definitely an ambition of us. And then to be at par, not just in terms of the sector, but also in terms of talents and also skills as well. And definitely in terms of all the necessary, I think, activities that comes with Islamic banking and finance industry. We would love to replicate Malaysia in terms of, I think, the Islamic capital market. I'm sure you know that we are still very much early at the nascent stage in the Islamic capital market. So soon we are trying to push towards that as well. Again, if I may reiterate, I would love to see Islamic social finance transgressing and progressing very, very well in the country, because there's a lot of opportunity in terms of that. In terms of wealth management too, we are lacking. And then we would love to also, I think, in terms of financial literacy even more, to be able to educate not just at the tertiary level, but also at the ground level, start them very, 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 very young, so that they would know that what Islamic banking is. So yeah, I think that would be, my future outlook, that Ariff.
Problem is Brunei is that the people are very wealthy, but like Dr. Ami said, need a wealth management system. So I think that's an opportunity actually for us or someone to explore on that. Okay.
True.
Okay, Dr. Amni, we have a Sharia question. Okay. So
Okay, Sharia course.
okay, is again related to about financing. So is it
Okay.
okay for people? The term used here is it okay in Islamic financing forcing people to accept akad, which you don't have other choice paying double what you lend? Okay, you got
Can
I
you
mean
repeat that,
is it
Ariff?
okay for Islamic banks, like you have a
Uh-huh.
business association with bank, bank asks you to sign this, and technically you don't have other
Uh-huh.
options except signing
Okay.
it, except of course you don't have to take the
Mm-hmm.
financing lah. So what's your view on that?
Okay. You mean, just sign it because you don't have other options. So you don't agree to the akad, you mean? So because you don't have other options.
Yeah.
I see. So basically, as a humble, citizen, also a humble academician, when we talk about akad per se, yes, we need to both agree, because of course we know that there are two parties, okay, to actually do a consent. So when you do for the enforcement of a contract, any form of contract, when it comes to Islamic banking and finance, there needs to be a consent between the two parties. So when you say that you don't have options, basically that would be a problem. But by right, when we talk about contracts, it's going to be very, very, how would you say, very, very difficult, because well, we do accept the fact that accepting of akad is in various forms. So once it is being signed, it can lead to the understanding that you have agreed to the particular contract. So when you say that you don't agree, for example, probably is, if I may advise you, is that you don't sign the akad. Okay, so one of the things is that, of course, if you don't have the option, you don't agree to it, but you don't have the option, what you can actually do to actually minimize your, how would you say, your minimize your, how would you say, reluctance, is actually read through the contracts. Okay, because that's the most important thing. If you don't agree to the contracts, but you already signed the contracts, so there's going to be discretion in terms of, are you agreeing to the contract in the sense of a Sharia, but you actually sign it in terms of the legal terms. So there's a lot of confusion there. So what my advice to anyone who is signing a contract is that browse through the products. Okay, browse through the products, understand your contracts, make sure that anyone who is the how would you say, the proponents for the Islamic, the opponent, or the representative for the bank, is actually one who is well learned as well. Because definitely Islamic banks, definitely in Brunei, they are being trained, to actually convey the message to customers. How are they going to convey it the right way? Of course, for example, you cannot say, this is the interest, for example. No, you cannot say that in terms of Islamic banking finance. You have an appropriate way of saying it, because we're not going to deal with interest per se when we talk about financing, perhaps. Okay, so I think there's going to be a lot of the discrepancy in terms of not agreeing but signing. So bear in mind, when you sign, in terms of when you look at from the legal perspective, yes, you have already agreed because you have signed the contract. So by right, in the Sharia, even in the Sharia, if you go to the Sharia court, if it's enforceable in Sharia court, you can actually be, questioned. Why did you sign this particular contract? Even if you go to a legal court, yes, you can actually be a question. You have already signed this particular contract, so by right you have agreed to that particular contract. So by right, what I might advise is, before you take any particular contract, if you don't agree with the contract, don't sign the contract. Read the terms and conditions of a particular contract, so that you understand what is going on in the contract, and you have the say to actually ask your banker, or anyone from the bank, to actually to actually explain to you what are the necessary terms and conditions. And by right, yes, they would definitely explain it to you. So please, when you sign it, by right, you are agreeing to the particular contract. So that would be a lot of discrepancy from both the Sharia and also the legal perspective. So I pass it back to you, Dr. Ariff. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Amni. I would like to ask about the fintech that you have mentioned. If I'm not mistaken, AMBD, or Authority Monetary of Brunei Darussalam, recently launched a white paper, if I'm not mistaken, on how fintech is going to be adopted in the banking industry in general in Brunei. Would you comment a bit on that?
To comment on that. You're putting me on a very difficult spot here, Dr. Ariff.
As always.
So yeah, I think in terms of fintech, I think it's relatively very new as well. I think AMBD have I think it's more open now, because previously there are only sandboxes. A particular, like a company who's interested in fintech would come to AMBD, and then they would register licenses, and then AMBD would give them some grace period to actually make sure that this is going to be trial and also being successful. So if you may know, these companies are very much limited in numbers in Brunei Darussalam. I think, if I may quote, some of the companies is like is iPay or BruPay, and then we have Jana Capital as well as a crowdfunding platform. So this corporations or companies or fintech startups are not as rampant or are not in large numbers if you compare with those already available, just figuring out in Malaysia. So I think if this is being open and also given the opportunity to flourish, there's going to be a lot of opportunity in Brunei Darussalam, because when it comes to fintech, excluding myself because I'm not Generation Z or the very advanced generation, they're very much interested in fintech. And this can actually lead to employment opportunities, to which if you don't know, our rate of employment, even though it has decreased, is quite high in Brunei Darussalam. So I think this could actually open opportunities for employment among the youngsters. It can actually force and also for fully how would you say be implemented not just by the industry but also in other sectors as well. The tourism industry, the food and beverages industry, the transportation industry. So these are the kind of things that maybe we can actually be more, be more open, be more forward looking, because financial technology is very, 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 very fast. You cannot just miss it every, it's going like that. So if we don't jump on the bandwagon now, I don't know how fast we are able to recoup to actually be at par with other countries, because Islamic banking finance is not something which is localized. Although now borders are closed, it's definitely something which needs to be internationalized, because we want Islamic banking and finance to not be something just for the Muslims, but also non-Muslims, and most importantly, something which is being used everywhere in the world, and maybe one day the only one being used in the world. So I think yes, Alhamdulillah, if fintech is going to progress very, very, very soon in Brunei Darussalam, I would definitely be very, very happy, Dr. Ariff. Maybe we can talk about that on Islamic fintech in Brunei Darussalam the next time we see each other virtually. So I'll give it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Generation is different already, Dr. Amni, because when we talk about technology and stuff, I think we are quite, I would say, a bit behind compared to our students, for example. I think they are very well progressive upon us,
True.
in front of us, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I should have another question. Sorry. Hold on. Let me see live chat here. Okay. Question from Dr. Miza. I think Dr. Hamiza. Okay, so in your point of view, so in over 20 years of inception of Islamic finance in Brunei that we talked earlier, do you see that it is necessary to deepen the Islamic financial market there? I mean, you talked earlier about the needs for Islamic capital market. What about the Islamic money market, or another form of financial market, Islamic financial market is there? Or do you think it's good already?
I don't think we should be complacent with where we are today, because if you say in terms of position, the numbers that you have mentioned earlier on during the early webinar, I don't think it's something that we are satisfied with. I think AMBD itself is pushing towards more good positions, and we are trying from every sector, educational sector, the banking sector, all the market players are doing what they can to actually push the boundaries of Islamic banking and also finance even more. So that means that we are trying to transgress into other forms and also areas of Islamic banking sector and also Islamic finance, so that it's not just concentrated on what we have today. Because if you see the market that we have in Brunei Darussalam is very much concentrated, and it's a very small market. So we wanted, probably, if we are going into Islamic capital market very, very soon, we're going to progress, inshallah. If we are going to progress that even more, I think the internationalization of Islamic banking industry and also finance in Brunei would definitely reach and also touch other areas of the world. For example, in the Middle East, in Europe, or even in other Western countries. So I think that is particularly untapped. So if this we can do, inshallah, that would definitely be a major contribution to the Islamic banking sector as a whole, as the whole nation, not just for Brunei Darussalam, but for Malaysia, for Indonesia, when we are able to contribute not just locally, but also internationally. So I think, yes, there needs to be a deepening of other market sectors, Islamic capital market, and then other markets as well. So, but the most important thing is that we're not complacent. We're with what we are, with where we are, with how we are, and also with who we are today. We are trying we're doing a lot of research. We are doing a lot of papers. We are presenting and trying to present a lot of ideas. So hopefully regulators are open to the ideas. Market players are able to join in the bandwagon to enforce those ideas, and definitely the community is supporting those ideas, of course. So Alhamdulillah, I think with the major support of the government as well as the Majesty's recognition and also continuous support, inshallah, with the good intention of Islamic Bank and Finance, yes, definitely there are going to be more development and also improvements in Islamic banking sector in Brunei Darussalam. Inshallah. Pass it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Dr. Amni, sorry, maybe it's
Yes.
out of topics, but I think it's quite related. Do you have any insight on the halal sector in the Brunei? Because if I'm not mistaken, it is also one of the areas that being focused by the government of Brunei. Any comment on that? Because I think a lot of our students are quite interested in that area.
In the halal sector? Oh yes, definitely. Because if you know, Brunei Darussalam is quite strict in terms of everything, being permissible and also halal. Right from, of course, when we talk about Islamic banking sector, we're also talking about the food industry. I think there's a lot of opportunity for Brunei in the halal industry, not just Islamic banking and in finance, but also the food industry, the food and beverage industry, the tourism industry also, because we actually, if I may say, we have the leverage of being a nation based on Sharia principles, if I may say that. So let me share with you, MORA, the Ministry of Religious Affairs, have actually implemented, I think a few years ago, that everything which is being sold by small businesses or any form of business in terms of food and beverages, it needs to be licensed. Okay, so when it's licensed, to ensure that everything that you use is actually halal, so you would have a halal certificate. So by right, Dr. Ariff, it's not just the big companies, the big restaurants that have the halal signature, that everything in this restaurant is halal. It's halal from this particular date until this particular date. But those of small businesses are also entitled and also are not say forced, but are ensured that they need to have the halal certificate to ensure that everyone, the community and also the citizens of Darussalam would be complacent and also be ensured that everything that they consume in the country and also everything which is being sold is actually of halal ingredients. So I think the halal sector is definitely something, a very good market, okay, for us. I do know that Malaysia is also a very strong proponent of the Islamic, the halal sector, the halal industry, not just the Islamic financial hub. So I do see that tourism as well, being a halal sector, would be very interesting. If anyone is doing research on that in Brunei Darussalam, that would be very, very interesting. And I think the government would actually be open to the opportunity, if it is, if it is suggested. Because we have a lot of resources which we can leverage on in terms of being everything halal. So imagine everything being halal. So imagine being the center of Muslims around the world, for being, coming to Brunei, not even having to worry of what you eat, of how you transact, of how you do business, because everything would be, according to the merits of Sharia and also within the ambits of Sharia. So I would love to see that being implemented, and also, being implemented and, being materialized in the near future, inshallah. I give it back to you, Dr. Ariff.
Thank you, Dr. Amni, for that information. Sorry, it is out of topic a bit, but I think
No problem.
that should engage our viewers today on this topic. Okay, I think that should wrap up our discussion today. Thank you so much, Dr. Amni, for your precious time discussing
Dr.
and
Ariff.
sharing with us not only on the development of Islamic banks and finance in Brunei, but also halal here. Okay, so although small, Brunei presents an opportunity for growth, in particular Islamic finance and halal industry, and maybe it will be a good avenue for us, our students in UiTM, in Malaysia in particular, to explore on potential opportunities there. Please fill in the attendance link given in the chat section. UiTM staff will receive training hours. Thank you again, Dr. Amni, and also UNISA Brunei, for giving us the opportunity to learn from your learned speakers. Inshallah, once COVID-19 is under control, inshallah, we would host Dr. Amni here in Terengganu.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, she cannot wait to visit Pasar Payang to buy batik. Okay. Thank
Now
you
the
to
cat is out of the
organi-
bag, Dr. Ariff.
Inshallah, we shall meet later, inshallah. Okay, thank you to
Inshallah.
organizer, Academy of Contemporary Islamic Studies, ACIS UiTM City, and not to forget our venue here, Studio UiTM, for the venue and the live stream. Don't forget to like and subscribe the channel Studio UiTM City. Inshallah, we shall meet again in the future, in the next webinar, in the next session. Inshallah, we shall see. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.